Almost 15 years ago, the world was graced with one of the greatest films that not just DreamWorks, but anyone had ever made about supervillains and their dichotomy with the superheroes they plot, scheme, and fight against. It was a story about both sides falling into an existential ennui for different reasons, before they decide to make positive changes in both of their lives. A story where a hero becomes a villain, and a villain becomes a hero, defying the standards that are meant to define them as they each take steps towards a life that is satisfying and fulfilling. Then they made 2 more movies, and the 3rd movie was so bad, it became one of the worst movies of the decade. So naturally, they decided to make a show about it. In case you didn't know, my name's Inviso Bill, and I'd like you to join me in this episode of Medianalysis as I go over the first season of the Peacock original series, Megamind. Rules. There will be spoilers, by the way, but if you made it this far, you probably don't care. If you haven't seen the first 3 movies, which take place before the events of this show, I would recommend watching my video which explains all 3 of them so you can get caught up with all the Megamind lore. And if you're already caught up, then let's begin. It's episode 1, and we are already off to a bad start. Megamind is standing in front of a mirror and trying to work on the way that he delivers his heroic banter. He tells Minion that he wants to inspire the people in the same way that Metro Man did, despite the fact that the last 3 movies which happened before this show already taught Megamind that he does not need to be like Metro Man in order to be a good hero. I'd say we are back at square one with this show, but it seems like we've gone back even further than that. Whatever. Megamind and Minion go to stop a crime in progress at the plot convenience store from the last movie. However, they are beaten to the scene by a vlogging superhero named Dude Monkey.
Dude Monkerinos!
After calling Megamind a geriatric hero while live streaming on not Twitch, this very real and totally not fake superhero brags to his not Twitch followers about how awesome he is before leaving Megamind and Minion in amazement and the fact that they have inspired others to fight crime, oblivious to the fact that they were the butt of the joke. But if you ask me, this entire show is the butt of the terrible joke that is itself. Megamind then tries to be like Dude Monkey and becomes a superhero you can stream online. Wait a minute. As a result, he messes up a lot more than usual in his lame attempts to copy his competition. He then learns from some iPad girl that he doesn't need to be like anyone else, he can just be himself. The very real superhero is asked to give a speech to the city, and when a random black man shows up, he freaks out and reveals that he is not actually a superhero and that all of his heroic actions were staged.
I know how to stop real criminals! Dude, you just got ousted as a fraud.
No, there's no way. You mean to tell me that this very genuine vlogger with an honest face was lying to his audience about the authenticity of his content? That's just unheard of. I've never seen such a thing like this before. Megamind defeats the Freak of the Week, and the day is saved. Cool. I think the reason I hate this one so much is because it's about Megamind learning that he doesn't need to be anyone but himself. Even though that was literally the premise of the last 3 movies. They just taught us the same lesson 4 times in a row, and it's really making me start to wonder who's even enjoying this thing. Huh. Well, that explains it. Megamind goes to a donut shop and causes the owner of said shop to fall into a vat of donut glaze. Throughout a series of unfortunate events, he inadvertently creates his own supervillain to fight. It's basically the second movie, Button of Doom, but only twice as long and somehow half as enjoyable to sit through.
Who am I? Who are you? And what's going on?
Remember that SpongeBob episode where he hits his head and the people around him think that because he has a cheese head and brown pants, his name must be Cheesehead Brown Pants? Well, what if I told you they use the exact same joke here to justify calling him Dr. Glazer Donut?
A doctor who's a donut?
Dr. Glazer Donut!
It's not funny.
Not Dr. Glazer Donut. You didn't even go to medical school.
Dr. Dipstick, get it, regains his memories before he teams up with Megamind to stop the Bubble Guppies or whatever their dumbass villain group is called, and the day is saved. Cool. Alright, this episode is actually pretty impressive. Not in that it's good, God no, but it's impressive in the fact that they somehow managed to fit a filler episode into an 8-episode season. Unless you count all of this as filler, in which case, it's just par for the course at this point. Minion and the iPad girl get into a fight about leaving trash around Megamind's base, and who is a better sidekick? It's Minion, by the way, and it's not even debatable. The trash causes roaches to crawl into the lair, and because Megamind defender of Metrocity, is afraid of roaches. He hides himself in a panic room while the other two deal with it. But if you think things couldn't get any more stupid, prepare to be unimpressed as Minion grabs a can of, get this, an intelligence booster spray and sprays it on the roaches, thinking that it was bug spray. Whoa! Now there are a bunch of super smart roaches running around, and Megamind is too scared to do anything about it, during which the iPad kid almost falls to her death and sadly will live to see another day. I hate this kid. Isn't that what you all came to see? Megamind cowering in fear from roaches? No? Well, someone must have thought it was a good idea, and whoever that person is, they're wrong. Megamind gets over his fear of roaches, and together, he and the Big Brain Gang deal with the roaches by sucking them all into a giant vacuum and the day is saved. Cool. Do you remember the movie Freaky Friday? How it was a fun and enjoyable movie, kind of like the first Megamind movie? And then remember how damn near every single show after that had to have at least one episode where they swap bodies? And how none of those episodes were ever funny or as good as the movie? Well, you're in luck, because if the Mr. Donut and the Roach episodes weren't bad enough, we get this Freaky Friday ripoff where Megamind and Roxanne switch bodies. You know how the story goes. My life as the mayor is so hard and difficult, I bet you have it easy as a superhero. Oh yeah, well, I've been dealing with dude monkeys, donut men, and disgusting roaches for the last few episodes. I can be a better mayor than you. I swap bodies, fight a weather woman who can't get the weather right, and realize it's not as easy as it looks being the other, before they go back into their original bodies and the day is saved. Cool. The list of disappointing episodes just never ends, does it? Megamind gets jealous of Roxanne hanging out with a neckbeard from summer camp like 20 years ago, and makes a robot to deal with it. The robot is also supposed to be the robotics project for the iPad girl's homework that Megamind made for her, even though she's like 11, but whatever. Oh, and the neckbeard is her teacher, by the way. Roxanne and the neckbeard realize they don't have as much in common as they did 20 years ago in summer camp, and that her current friends, like Megamind and the rest of the Big Brain Gang, are more fun to be around than this random dude from band camp or whatever their summer camp was about. Once she ditches this doofus, Megamind quits being jealous of Roxanne and stops hanging out with the robot. Because of this, now the robot is jealous of Megamind and Roxanne, and goes on a rampage to cope with its jealousy before the robot abducts Megamind and scales a building before it attempts to throw him over the side of said building, all because the robot gets jealous that Megamind wanted to be Roxanne's friend and not his.
All of this just because you were jealous.
They defeat the stupid robot and the day is saved. Cool. Megamind has been up all night trying to be a better crime fighter and stop the Doom Syndicate, the main villain group in the last movie in case you forgot because they were kind of irrelevant, from whatever they are plotting with some radioactive isotopes. And, now that it's daytime, Megamind is delirious and needs to sleep. Even though all three of his friends are telling him to rest, he keeps trying to figure out what the dumb syndicate are planning. Roxanne doesn't have time to babysit Megamind because she is the mayor and has mayor things to do. And the iPad kid has school to go to, so Minion is left to deal with Megamind as he tries to help his boss get the rest he needs. During this, he finds tickets for a show that Megamind likes being raffled off, so he wants to surprise Megamind with the concert tickets, but can't leave Megamind's side. It's not like he can be in two places at once. Unless... yeah, it's one of those cloning myself goes horribly wrong episodes, made even more annoying by the fact that Minion gets into an argument with Roxanne's secretary over who is a better assistant to their boss. It's Minion, by the way, and it's not even debatable. An argument that escalates into a petty competition, where these two basically pimp themselves out by doing random tasks just to score tickets to a rock show.
Well then, time for a good old-fashioned assist-off.
But things get even more crazy when a fusion of the Human Torch and the Thing cause havoc in the city. So, Minion makes a giant minion, not that one, to fight against the lava rock monster. After this, the regular-sized minion wins the raffle and uses musical mind control, don't ask, to make all the other minions walk into the water, where they were never seen again. What a way to go. Megamind falls asleep, they defeat the Freak of the Week, a couple clones of Minion drown themselves, and the day is saved. Cool. At this point, you are probably wondering when the plot for this show is finally gonna kick in, and if there is any real consistency between the past 6 episodes of this 8-episode show. So was I. It's the iPad kid's birthday, and Megamind wants to make her a cake, even though he has never made a cake in his life, so he needs to get... I'm sorry, I'm even boring myself with this episode. I want to make this entertaining, but it's hard to do, and I don't care about the subplot of Megamind making a cake. I barely care about the real plot of this episode, which is that the surprise villain from the last film, Floating Brain Guy, wants to steal Megamind's pacifier. For some reason, and the only reason I care about this plot is because the Brain Guy is finally a part of the show. But at this point, it's too little too late for me to fully be invested. Maybe don't wait until the last 2 episodes to get things rolling, because that ship has already sailed. iPad Girl is manipulated into stealing the pacifier from Megamind by the floating brain, but tries to outsmart the brain by giving him a fake. But the brain expected this, so he swaps the fake with the real one while distracting her with his evil master plan.
I wanted to take this time to explain my evil plan.
As much as I don't like the show, I can appreciate the fact that Machiavellian, the brain guy by the way, is always one step ahead of whoever he's up against, but more on that later. Machiavellian uses the resources that the Doom Syndicate has been gathering over the last few episodes to make himself a new body, and the episode ends there. Cool. Machiavellian is back, and better than ever. And, to make his debut, he decides to put his former Padawan to the test, by setting up a game for him to prove that he really is the hero he says he is. Megamind must defeat 3 supervillains, solve 3 riddles, and save the city with only an hour on the clock before an asteroid hits Metro City. More on that later. The game is on, and after cracking the starter riddle, the first villain on the list is a stereotypical Frenchman who says bonjour and talks about eating snails in his first 15 seconds on screen. I wish I was joking.
Bonjour, Monsieur Megamind.
Thought I smelled snails.
It's escargot. I had them for lunch.
Megamind shoots this cliché croissant connoisseur, but not before he destroys a telescope. I'm sure that's not important and won't come back to bite him at all. But before we can deal with the ramifications of Megamind's recklessness for shooting a $1 billion telescope, Machiavellian tells Megamind his next riddle. And, after hearing the riddle, he and the Big Brain Gang figure out that the next place they need to go to is the Metro City Power Station, where he fights this woman who can control the weather, but doesn't know what it's called, for some reason.
Just want to thank our sponsor for today's festivities, Mr. Minions Meatsicles.
Fuck off. It turns out that when Megamind dumped a bunch of water on Gale Weathers over here, it caused the city's power station to explode. I'm sure that's not important and won't come back to bite him at all, but before we can deal with the ramifications of Megamind's reckless actions for destroying the power grid, Machiavellian tells Megamind that he broke into his lair while the grid was down and has hacked the brain bots to make them commit crimes all over the city. Megamind realizes that the only way to stop the brain bots is to take out the antenna that sends them signals. So, of course, he uses the Death Ray, a machine designed to kill not Superman, to knock out the little antenna. Funnily enough, the stupidity of this plan isn't even the thing that bothers me the most. No, the real issue is the fact that when Megamind pulls out the remote for the Death Ray, he pulls out the wrong remote. And how do I know that it's the wrong remote? Because they literally spent 12% of the Button of Doom movie's runtime, that is not a joke by the way, trying to find the remote to the Death Ray, and this box with a red button is not the same remote that was used.
I've got it, sir!
All alone!
Found it! The remote to the laser satellite! Brilliant, sir!
I understand that at this point, I can't ask for a good story, but geez dude, at least make your story consistent with what happened to your characters literally a week and a half before the events of this show. Anyways, Megamind fires a Death Ray at the antenna to destroy it, but he hits a meteor. Yes, a meteor. Not a comet, like the show says, but more on that later. Because of this, the meteor is sent hurtling towards the city. I'm sure that's not important and won't come back to bite him, but Megamind is freaking out because he doesn't know what to do. The iPad girl tells him that since he beat his mentor once, he should be able to do it again. Megamind then tells her the truth. He never actually beat his mentor on purpose. He just left a burrito on the microwave or something for too long while he was out on an errand, and it blew up Machiavellian. Well, that's stupid. The iPad girl and Megamind get the idea to use the D-gun that he always has on him in order to destroy the asteroid and save the city. It doesn't happen. Just as all hope seems lost, a hero swoops in to save the city. But, to the surprise of Megamind, this hero is actually Machiavellian. He used the statue of Megamind from the ending of the first movie to destroy the asteroid. Machiavellian is touted as the real hero of Metro City, and with his newfound praise, uses this opportunity to claim that Megamind was the real villain all along, and has never truly changed, showing them footage of him sabotaging the telescope, the power grid, and even firing the Death Ray satellite to knock the asteroid off its course and into the path of the city. Everyone in the city, including Roxanne, believes what Machiavellian is saying due to his overwhelming evidence against Megamind. Just as Minion and the iPad girl are about to admit defeat at the manipulative hand of Machiavellian, Megamind tells them that there's one final card they can play. They need to find Metro Man. And that's it. That's Megamind Rules Season 1. I'll admit, not the strongest first season to a show that I've seen so far, but not the worst either. Especially that final episode, but more on that in the story and plot segment of the video. However, before we get to that, I want to talk about this show's characters. I think the thing that makes this segment easy is the fact that the characters in Megamind Rules is a very short list as far as new characters. Actually, I don't even think that there are any new characters, and that's fine by me because the ones I saw so far were more than enough, and not in a good way. It's bad enough that they had to go out of their way to canonically rename not just one, but 2 different characters in this show since the movie, but perhaps the worst character was not the one that they renamed, but the one that they rewrote. So let's talk about the giant blue elephant in the room that is the character of Megamind. Megamind in the first 2 films was a super genius that was lost on the pronunciation of certain words, and the way what he did impacted others. There were some awkward but funny moments like him not knowing how to ride a bike or him explaining that he didn't have any friends, but you don't need to think too much about those things because he is busy playing 3D chess throughout the entire first movie while trying to create a world that he wants that will make him happy. The great thing about Megamind was that although his brain was big, his hindsight was narrow and short-sighted.
No, my hindsight is questionable.
He would have constant moments of hubris that made you realize he is too focused on the end goal, that he doesn't see the path that things are going in relation to said end goal before it's too late and catches up with him. But do you want to know what I remember most about this Megamind? Well, he got called geriatric by a not Twitch streamer. He lost a fight to one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish. He lost a fight to a cockroach, and for some reason, made a whole episode about that. He got jealous of a neckbeard, and for some reason, they made a whole episode about that. He had some trouble sleeping after getting beaten one-on-one by the Doom Syndicate, despite having beaten all 4 in one go in a movie that takes place right before the events of this show. And most of all, he lost the Battle of Wits to Machiavellian. This is what comes to mind when I think about the new way they wrote Megamind. A loser. It's ironic because in my last video, where I watched and reviewed every Megamind movie, go check that out by the way, I said that I didn't like the fact that he was always facing idiots and was hoping he could fight someone on his own level of intelligence for a change. So, imagine my surprise and subsequent disappointment when the first super genius he goes up against in the show is not Machiavellian, his former mentor and supervillain teacher that they foreshadowed at the end of the 3rd movie, but is instead a cockroach that got sprayed with a super genius intelligence booster. Are you fucking kidding me?
Now I'm a super genius, just like you.
If I wanted to watch a show where the big brain character is accidentally making his own problems but uses his genius to solve them, I would just go watch Jimmy Neutron instead. And I know I already used that joke last video, that the plot of the Jimmy Neutron movie was the same as the first Megamind movie, but at least Jimmy Neutron, the show, had the decency to keep the characters as consistent as they were in the movie. The same, however, cannot be said for Megamind Rules. Could you imagine if Sheen had to change his name in-universe to something else because his first name is the last name of Charlie Sheen? Or if Carl Weezer had to get his name changed because there was a band called Weezer? That's some JoJo Stan localization naming shit right there. I know I'm getting caught up on Megamind, and while his character assassination was nothing short of atrocious, we need to talk about Minion. To be honest, Minion was probably my favorite character from the original movie. He was a resourceful and down-to-earth character that did his best to make sure that his boss made competent choices. Now, whether or not his boss always made those decisions is another question, but his effort was there nonetheless. When they renamed Minion to Chum, they may as well have changed everything about his character along with the name. Because oftentimes, it's hard for me to even believe that I'm watching the same character from the first movie. The whole point of the Doom Syndicate movie subplot was that Minion was tired of being treated like a common henchman and wanted to be Megamind's sidekick or partner. And just like in the first movie, Megamind apologizes to Minion without him realizing that he's there, only for him to turn around and see that Minion, who heard his entire apology the whole time. But the only difference here is that the apology amounted to jack shit, because all Megamind does throughout the show is treat Minion like a common henchman, and not like a sidekick, like he said he was going to do. The iPad girl was annoying, and I won't even mention her name. I didn't like seeing her take up screen time in the third movie, didn't like seeing her take up time in the series, and I'm not gonna give her any more time in this segment. Moving on. Roxanne wasn't unbearable like the others, just irrelevant. And that's not me taking a dig at her character or something, but she genuinely didn't matter at all until the latter half of the series. She is usually the voice of reason when Megamind is causing havoc in the streets, and doing things like making his own villain that almost kills him. Twice. As for the villains,
Dude, Munkarinos!
kill it with fire. One fish, two fish, new show, who dis? I get the joke, but it's just not funny. So, it's come to this. A talking roach. We're really scraping the bottom of the barrel with this one, huh? Even though Megamind had it coming, I still hate this robot. The rock, the boulder, the stone, the pebble. Love his powers, hate his name and French stereotypes. An underused character that I think only ever appeared once in this entire show. Love his powers, hate his name. He is unnecessarily edgy and all doom and gloom, which is pretty funny to me, even though his character kinda sucks. Also, he definitely died in the last movie, but whatever. Despite being able to control the weather, she can't tell you what it is. It's like a time god, always being late. Somehow. I think she harbors the most animosity for Megamind, and while she isn't the worst character here, I feel like more could have been done with her. Fun fact about Lady Doppler is that she is the only member of the Doom Syndicate that appeared in a 2010 art book that was published shortly after the original Megamind movie, and it even explains her epic backstory as to how she got her powers. She got fired and went on Twitter to rant about it, then got struck by lightning. The end. Of course, I had to save the best for last. Machiavellian is honestly exactly what I want in a Megamind rival/villain. He has a complicated past with his rival. He is just as smart, if not even smarter than Megamind himself. He was his former mentor and has returned to see if the student truly has surpassed the master. I was unironically excited and looking forward to seeing this guy in action ever since the last 23 seconds of the third movie, Megamind vs. the Doom Syndicate, and wanted to know what role he played in the upcoming show. And it seems like they managed to do all but ruin my excitement and anticipation, because this dude does fuck all for the first 75% of season 1. If I wanted to spend almost 2 hours waiting for a good villain to show up, I would have just watched that terrible third movie instead, not that one. I will say this though, once Machiavellian is back to full power at the start of episode 8, things ramp up and don't slow down. And let me tell you, I am all for it, but we'll get to that later. For now, the characters of the show get a 1.5 out of 5 from me. There's just way too much I don't like when it comes to the characters, and only 2, 3 if we include the medieval emo guy, are actually ones that don't make you wish they would just stop talking as soon as they start talking. But enough about the people in this show. Let's talk about the way this show progresses with its story and plot. It's kind of hard to take things seriously, given how I feel it just disregards simple things like continuity, both in itself and also in the other movies. Ignoring the fact that they have Megamind comparing himself to Metro Man, despite the main premise of the last 3 movies, each being about him not doing that. There are things that happened in the last 3 movies that are just completely ignored in this series. Again, the entire subplot of the 3rd movie was about Minion wanting more from Megamind, yet we just see him back to square one in the first episode, as if that whole revelation that he and Megamind had was just a reset to 0 at the start of the show. Hell, the main conflict of the 6th episode is when Roxanne's secretary and Minion are arguing about who is a better subordinate and assistant for their boss. It's Minion, by the way, and it's not even debatable. A sidekick shouldn't need to do that kind of thing, and yet, here we are. It also doesn't help that we had not 1, but 2 filler episodes. That's literally 25% of the first season just being unnecessary. A season that's 8 episodes long, mind you. Me personally, I would argue that up to 4 of these episodes are filler, but they have just enough relevant details where you need to see them to know why things are happening the way that they do, which is the same issue that the show Velma suffers from. Video on season 2 for Velma coming out soon, by the way. If you can tell me what bearing on the plot that Megamind fighting a cockroach had in the grand scheme of things, I will stop talking about it. I swear I will, but it was just so dumb and it gave me first season of Velma vibes, and not in a good way. Watch my video on that, by the way. I hate the fact that they had this whole Metro City Comet subplot in the final episode of the first season for a very specific reason that I will get into really soon. But before I do that, I would like to praise the show for at least doing something right. Giving credit where credit is due. The only saving grace of this disastrous excuse for a story truly is the reveal and the revival of Machiavellian. Like I said, once he's on screen, things pick up fast and don't slow down. Whether that is to be attributed to the intensity of the elaborate schemes Machiavellian himself comes up with, or just them trying to cram as much of a conclusion that they can into the last 2 episodes, is up for you to decide though. The thing that I find the most interesting is that in the 3rd movie, the Doom Syndicate thinks that Megamind defeated Metro Man and became a hero who was really still a villain in order to trick the people of Metro City as he moves to the next phase of his plan in order to rule over the city. And, in a cruel twist of irony, Machiavellian made Megamind out to be a horrible villain that almost destroyed the city, soiling his reputation and legitimacy as a hero in the process, while saving the city and acting as a hero. In one fell swoop, Machiavellian managed to turn the citizens to his side while leaving Megamind at large as public enemy number 1. A wolf in sheep's clothing who is a hero in the eyes of the people, but really only saved the city to make them all lower their guard and trust him as he moves on to the next phase of his master plan to rule the city. Wait a minute. Yeah, Machiavellian literally became the hero that the city needed most, while at the same time was the villain that Megamind was supposed to be. It's pretty well done too, even though it can feel a bit rushed at times given that all of this happens in the very last episode of the first season. That doesn't mean that this episode doesn't have its issues in continuity though. Like I said before, when Megamind uses the Death Ray remote, this is simply not the right one. We've seen what it looks like in the 2nd movie Button of Doom, and they made such a big deal about finding the remote that it shouldn't be this black box with one big button to push. Not even that, but Machiavellian tells Megamind that he repositioned the Death Ray's targeting to hit the asteroid. But even if he didn't, how would Megamind have even known that the laser was gonna hit the antenna? All he did was grab a button and press it. In the first 2 movies, we saw just how much time and preparation it takes to even use the Death Ray. You gotta have a target. You gotta wait for the sun to warm up for some reason. You gotta use the controls or this very large remote. But most of all, you need to check your position on the laser before you fire it. And you know what? Let's play devil's advocate for a minute here and pretend that the remote was the right remote. That still doesn't fix the second issue with the whole Death Ray plan, which is that it canonically takes a certain amount of time to have to fire it in the first place. But for some reason, Megamind is able to grab the first big red button he can find and shoot the Death Ray with no wait time whatsoever. And don't tell me that Megamind probably fixed it to be better without all the extra steps that I listed before, because 1, he would not have had the time for that due to the fact that the battle with Titan in the first movie and the events that take place in the final episode all happen over the course of like 2 to 3 weeks. Like I said in my last video, the timeline here is very strained for no real reason. And 2, if he did have it fixed, Maybe they would have shown us that happening on screen, instead of something asinine and irrelevant like, oh, I don't know, 23 minutes of Megamind hiding from cockroaches. Better yet, screw the laser plan altogether. Why didn't he just go back to his secret hideout and reboot the brainbots from his computer? That just seems like a much better plan than using the world's most expensive laser pointer to knock out a singular antenna, which didn't even happen and almost caused a mass extinction from that asteroid, by the way. Notice how I said asteroid and not comet, like how it's constantly referred to for this show's episode? Well, that's because that's exactly what it is. If you watched my Avatar video and remember what I had to say about Sozin's comet, you'll remember me mentioning that comets are made of ice. This is a fucking rock. Therefore, it's not a comet. I know that these are very small things to nitpick in what is my favorite episode of this show so far, which isn't really saying much, but as much as I can praise it for doing the little things right, I gotta come down on it for the things that literally just needed a simple Google search to fix, but just didn't. I'm getting annoyed talking about this. Story and plot gets a 2 out of 5 for me. The last episode saved its score from just being a 1. I really did not like the way that they did things until the very last episode. Rewatchability. Is Megamind Rules worth rewatching? Not really. I only watched this show again just to know what clips I needed to use for this video, and just knowing how disappointed I was going to be going into the second round of this show did not help my experience whatsoever. If there is anything that makes a show worth rewatching, it's the theme song and maybe the final episode. The song is actually really catchy, and it's a shame that such a great song was put into something as disappointing as Megamind Rules. I like the song so much, in fact, that the original idea was to play this song on my bass guitar as the background music for the video. It didn't happen. I think another thing I'm going to start asking in this segment is not just if this is worth rewatching, but if this is worth recommending to others. The answer is still no, though. I don't see myself or anyone I know going out of their way to watch this thing just for fun, let alone going out of their way to watch this thing multiple times. 1 out of 5. If it wasn't for that intro song, this would have been a straight 0 out of 5, no questions asked. A fun fact about this video is that I had my notes for Megamind Rules, the show, and the script halfway typed up way before I even uploaded and even recorded my Megamind marathon video, but I just hated the idea of going back to watch this show so much that I just couldn't go through with making the video and I had to just do that instead. And lastly, the finale. The way a show ends can make or break your show, and the taste it leaves in your mouth can quickly sour if it's not one that is enjoyable or one that even makes sense. So, what do I think of the finale of Megamind Rules? It was not at all what I expected, in both the best ways and the worst ways. In the best way, it subverted my expectations that they were just gonna rush to save the day with something really stupid, like they have been doing for the previous 7 episodes. Everything tended to just get resolved so fast in the last 7 episodes that it almost felt lazy at times. But here, we saw Megamind pulling out all the stops just to keep up with Machiavellian, let alone beat him. And he still came up short, making me wonder what Megamind can even do against someone like him, and also made me wonder how someone as brilliant as Machiavellian ever got blindsided by that microwave burrito nonsense. But in the worst way, Megamind says the only card they can play at this point to turn the game in their favor is to call on Metro Man. For me, this is a double-edged sword. Yes, the return of Metro Man was a surprise that I didn't see coming, and now that Machiavellian has super strength and can fly, the only person who can do that too as a good guy off the top of my head in this universe is Metro Man. But the issue that comes with a solution like that is the fact that we just spent the last 3 movies and 8 episodes teaching Megamind that he doesn't need to be like Metro Man in order to be a great hero. Now I'm worried that as soon as Metro Man is back in the picture, Megamind won't be able to stop comparing himself to Metro Man again, and I just think that would be such a waste to spend all that time beating the same dead horse that Megamind doesn't need to compare himself to anyone, just for the former hero to come back and steal the spotlight, causing him to have to compare himself to Metro Man again. As far as neat little cliffhanger endings are concerned, this is a very decent one. I'm taken aback by the way that this could impact Megamind's character going forward with that whole Metro Man nonsense, but other than that, I have no real issue with it. I give it a 2.5 out of 5. All these scores together give Megamind Rules a final average of 1.75 stars out of 5. This show is meh. I would not go out of my way to recommend it to anyone off the top of my head. They ruined a lot of the characters from the last 3 movies, and out of the 8 episodes of the first season, 2 of them were filler, and only 1 of them was relatively decent. And unfortunately, the decent one was the very last episode. I feel like they could have made this a better show if we skipped all the pointless shenanigans and we were hinted to Machiavellian's influence of the events throughout the show, rather than have him barely appear in the 7th episode and take center stage in the finale. Oh, and if they got rid of this iPad kid. Seriously, who thought that having her around was a good idea? I don't like this kid. I'm surprised that I was able to get this video out as fast as I did. I rarely upload once a month, but 3 in 1 month is still wild to me. I really didn't think that was gonna happen, but I guess we'll see if I keep uploading consistently. If you want to see my last video, click here, and if you want to listen to more of my voice for some reason, you can watch this playlist right here. But that's all I got for now. Thank you for staying until the end of the video, and a big thank you to all 1,248 people who bought tickets to the Inviso Bill show. Tell me what you thought about this video, and what you want to see me talk about next time. But, until that next time arrives, I'm Inviso Bill, and that's all for my spill. Like, comment, hit subscribe, you'll never know when, but I'll see you next time.